What's shaking, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more toy dolls, and we're going back to the compilation Wonderful World of the Toy Dolls. This is 1999. As I mentioned before, there's a really cool sort of set of liner notes, sort of explaining the history of the toy dolls and giving some commentary and analysis of them, so shout out to that. It also shows a bunch of the sort of like original releases, and I do have to mention that one that looks like Bond is included like on the back face of the disc or the case. So yeah, it's a cool compilation. Again, I know they have a whole bunch of albums as well as a bunch of like singles and so on, so this is in a way maybe the tip of the iceberg, but I was recently reminded of this group, and having reconnected with a couple songs already, I'm enjoying it. I want to hear more, so we'll go through this whole compilation and see what happens after that. We're going to listen to Tommy Kowey's Car. It's the first track on this compilation. I talked about it before. It's one of the tunes that immediately comes to mind. Maybe immediately after I've Got Asthma, that's the first one that jumps out, because I think, as I said, of all the tunes I've heard from them, that one's probably my favorite, but I like this tune a lot. It has sort of a cheeky opening, and then ultimately it's another narrative, but there's, some different pieces, some different characters. There's a secretary in the office, and it's, Tommy Kowey. It's like a place where people can get bits and bobs for their car. So yeah, it's just a funny little story, and ultimately what I do remember is that it's another tune where when I was first hearing this album, and again, I heard this song before any other, it was just like, man, like, it has that early 80s flavor, but it's very different from early 80s Subhumans or like early 80s Bad Religion or Dead Kennedys. It's in a totally different world, but I love it. It's, it's equally enjoyable to me, just in a very different sort of framework. So let's get it. This is Tommy Kowey's Car, the song by Toy Dolls, and it's from the 1999 compilation, or we hear it here rather, on the 1999 compilation, The Wonderful World of the Toy Dolls.
Yeah, did you see who that was getting in that car? Aye, it was. There's a motor store at the top of Milton Road, you go there for little bits and pieces for your car. And in the office there, Sister Secretary, she's got long hair. Mr. Tommy Kowey fancies her. I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. In Tommy Kowey's car. Yeah! Now at the motor store, he was there last Tuesday night with her. I saw they were kissing at the factory door, but she still tells me there's nothing going on with us, you see. It was Tommy Kowey's wife who saw. I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. Yeah, I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. In Tommy Kowey's car. Oh, take it, Tommy.
Come on.
Now at the motor store, Mr. Tommy Kowey's got a gun, you are. She's never been in it, she says before, but now she tells lies. She was having dinner out with all the night, and went in Tommy Kowey's car. I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. Yeah, I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. Yeah, I saw her in Tommy Kowey's car. In Tommy Kowey's car. In Tommy Kowey's car. In Tommy Kowey's car. In Tommy Kowey's car.
I did forget that line about where she denies it. It's like, no, it's Tommy Kowey's wife that you saw. I'm very amused by that. But yeah, so it's a cheeky little song. There's an implication of some inappropriate relations, a tryst, if you will. So yeah, it's just indicative of the kind of flavor that I remember. Although again, I remember that one and I've Got Asthma way better than everything else. So I imagine this is kind of the flavor of what we'll be going through. That's what my memory suggests. But ultimately, the other tunes will be a bit more unknown to me. So they'll be a bit more of like a fresh listen, almost as if I'm hearing the lyrics at least for the first time. Though, yeah, bottom line, a really cool song. I enjoy the silliness of it, and again, I think ultimately. I'm wondering, like, do people know other punk bands, like, from the early 80s or so, who have this flavor? I think there's definitely groups with a lot of comedy that come later. There's a lot of, like, 90s punk bands where, like, whether it's Guttermouth or, NoFX would be a good example. There's a lot of punk bands from later that have a lot of comedy in their songs, although even then, I'd say it's a bit different flavor. But I'm wondering, like at early '80s when they were doing this, is there any other group that was sort of walking that side of the street? Because I can't personally think of it. Again, I know there's like moments in maybe like one song here, one song there. I guess the Ramones. What am I saying? I guess the Ramones had sort of like beat on the brat with a baseball bat or whatever. I mean, it's like it's so absurdist and over the top. I guess that was supposed to be, or was kind of like a antecedent. But yeah, I just wonder like how many silly sort of comedy punk groups people are familiar with, because really like when I heard this group, part of why I found them so interested when my friend's girlfriend was playing them, it was like, I've never heard anything like this, and you're saying this is like 82, 83, like what the hell? So yeah, I was intrigued partially because it was so unlike a lot of punk rock that I listened to, which is a bit more muckraking and sort of scowly faced, if you will. So yeah, just a really cool tune. We'll be back for Nail of the Elephant. Let me know what you think of this one. Peace.